Shalom. This week we are reading Parashat Va'etchanan. We're continuing in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, and now we are in the second Torah portion. And Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our master, is continuing to review the past 40 years. He's prophesizing to future generations, and he is generally continuing to prepare his beloved nation, the children of Israel, to enter into the land of Israel upon his death, which is impending. And this parsha, Torah portion of Va'etchanan, it just exhibits Moshe's great passion and love for God, for his people, and for that land that he will not enter, but only gets to see from a distance. In Parashat Va'etchanan, which literally means, the word Va'etchanan, past tense, means, and I begged. Because the parsha opens up with Moshe just unplugged. He is getting up front and very personal. In fact, on the one hand, his message is very public. On the other hand, it's exquisitely private and so personal that it's almost like reading someone's diary. In fact, the parsha begins with Moshe exposing his heart in a very real way and beginning with recounting to the children of Israel his prayer. I implored, I begged Hashem at that time, saying, my Lord, Hashem Elokim, you have begun to show your servant your greatness and your strong hand. And what power is there in the heaven or on the earth that can perform according to your deeds and according to your mighty acts? Let me now cross and see the good land that is on the other side of the Jordan, this good mountain and the Lebanon. And as our sages teach, according to Jewish tradition, this prayer that he's referring to is not actually one prayer, it's actually 515 different prayers that Moshe was just storming the gates of heaven, begging Hashem. All he wanted was to be able to come into the land of Israel, and this good land, he wanted to see the good mountain, which is an allusion to Jerusalem, and the Lebanon, which is an allusion to the Holy Temple. And after Moshe explains about his prayer, the parasha contains such unparalleled connections between the people of Israel and the land. And I don't know if there's any other group of verses that emphasize so strongly that the connection to the people of Israel, to this land, is not marginal or incidental or preferable or optional or secondary or minor. Chapter 4 and verse 1, now, O Israel, listen to the decrees and to the ordinances that I teach you to perform, so that you may live, and you will come and possess the land that Hashem, the God of your forefathers, gives you. So we just read, I'm commanding and teaching you these commandments to perform, so that you may live, and you will come and possess the land that the Lord, the God of your forefathers, gives you. How much clearer than this can it get? The fact that the commandments were given to Israel to perform in the land. Actually, it keeps on getting clearer. In verse 5, see, I have taught you decrees and ordinances as Hashem, my God, has commanded me to do so in the midst of the land to which you come to possess it. And then he goes on and explains that this position, this idea of our being in the land in order to perform the commandments, and of our receiving the commandments in order to perform them, to go into the land and live, Moshe explains that this is our entire social media campaign, our public relations, this is our tweet to the world, this is our diplomatic initiative, because he goes on to say that you shall safeguard and perform them, meaning the commandments, for it is your wisdom and discernment in the eyes of the peoples, who shall hear all these decrees and who shall say, surely a wise and discerning people is this great nation. And the subsequent verses that describe the intimacy of our relationship with Hashem and our connection to these ordinances in the Torah, this is our diplomatic initiative. This is why we're here. This is all we're supposed to say to the nations, and this is what the nations will see. And then Moshe recalls the Sinai experience So you approached and stood at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain was burning with fire up to the heart of heaven, darkness, cloud, and thick cloud. And the Lord spoke to you from the midst of the fire. You were hearing the sound of words. You were not seeing a likeness, only a sound. And the verses continue to emphasize that the main thing that we have always to remember is to fear God, to give reverence to God, and nothing else. In fact, Moshe continues, and in verse 23, he warns them and he says, beware for yourselves lest you forget the covenant of Hashem, your God. And Moshe is explaining, I'm going to die here. I'm not going to be crossing over, but you shall be going in. And when you do, don't forget the covenant of God that he has sealed with you, and beware for yourselves lest you forget the covenant of God, of Hashem, your God, that he has sealed with you, and you make for yourselves a carved image, a likeness of anything, as Hashem your God has commanded you. For Hashem your God, he is a consuming fire, a jealous God. And then Moshe has a prophecy of exile and return, that Hashem will never abandon us and that we will return to him. But he goes on to say, when you beget children and grandchildren, and will have been long in the land, you will grow corrupt and make a carved image, a likeness of anything, and you will do evil in the eyes of Hashem your God to anger him. I appoint heaven and earth this day to bear witness against you, that you will surely perish quickly from the land to which you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You shall not have lengthy days upon it, for you will be destroyed. And this entire warning seems to be associated only with making a likeness of something. Moshe literally is prophesying and warning the people about exile, and then of course followed with the promise of return. But does this sound proportional? These verses indicate that the entire reason for this exile is going to be having made a physical likeness. Where is the a crime and punishment here? Is this proportional? Is this really about making a totem pole and saying it's God? Is this really about making a likeness? And purists will look at these verses and tell us that it's all about a prohibition against some sort of a physical depiction of some power. Or is it deeper? Is it also a warning against making anything too material, too physical, too one-dimensional, against worshipping physical values, materialization and materialism? What is materialism? Defined as a tendency to consider material possessions and physical comfort as more important than spiritual values. Or philosophically, the definition would be the doctrine that nothing exists except matter and its movements and its modifications. I think that Moshe's warning to the children of Israel about how important it is for them to stay far removed from these concepts which are clearly alien to Hashem's Torah, and how that would be a factor in driving them out of the land of Israel. This is a warning against apparently the greatest danger that we would face in our land, because things here, especially, they're not as meets the eye. We're called upon constantly to rise above matter, its movements and its modifications, and to emphasize the true nature of existence, our relationship with Hashem. And as Moshe continues to tell us in the beginning of chapter 5, Hashem sealed a covenant with not only us, but also with our children. And this is followed here with a repetition of the Ten Commandments. And then in chapter 5, in verse 28, we read, Moshe says, but as for you, stand here with me, Hashem told him, and I shall speak to you the entire commandment and the decrees and the ordinances that you shall teach them, and they shall perform them in the land that I shall give them to possess it. You shall be careful to act as Hashem, the Lord your God, commanded you. You shall not stray to the right or to the left. On the entire way that Hashem your God commanded, you shall go, so that you shall live and it will be good for you, and you shall prolong your days in the land that you shall possess. This is like the summary of our entire relationship with the Torah and this land. In the beginning of chapter 6, we read, This is the commandment and the decrees and the ordinances that Hashem your God commanded to teach you to perform in the land to which you are crossing to possess it, so that you will fear Hashem your God, to observe all His decrees and commandments that I command you, your child, and your grandchild, all the days of your life, so that your days will be lengthened. And following these verses, we have the hallmark of the creed of Israel, Shema Yisrael, the declaration that there is only Hashem, there's only one God, and there is nothing else. And then we have 3 times in chapter 6, verse 10, verse 18, and verse 23. We read in verse 10, "It shall be that when Hashem your God brings you to the land that Hashem swore to your forefathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you." And then again, in verse 18, we read, "You shall do what is fair and good in the eyes of Hashem, so that it will be good for you, and you shall come and possess the good land that Hashem swore to your forefathers." And then again, in verse 23, "And He took us out of there, Egypt, in order to bring us, to give us the land that He swore to our forefathers." The Torah does not call the land of Israel the promised land. That's not a Jewish concept. It's something that we hear all the time, the expression, the promised land, that the land of Israel is the promised land. Actually, that's very inaccurate. The authentic expression in the Torah is that it's the sworn land. It's the land that He already gave to our forefathers. He didn't just promise it, it's a swear, it's an oath. And this is the land, it's a done deal. It was sworn by God to our forefathers, and it already happened. In fact, in chapter 7 and verse 8, we read about that oath. "Rather, because of Hashem's love for you and because He observes the oath that He swore to your forefathers." So we have this tremendous emphasis in Parashat Va'etchanan of the connection by an oath, by a covenant between the God of Israel, the children of Israel, and this land. And right now, probably at a theater near you, you can see the show entitled "The World Against Israel," because it's playing everywhere. And we are witness today to such a tremendous animosity against Israel in her land, essentially asserting herself that this is her land and doing everything that she needs to do in order to see to it that she can live in this land. And I think that nowhere is the explanation provided in a more concise and crystal clear manner than in this week's Torah portion, the explanation for this phenomena of the world against Israel and the explanation for everything that we are going through and why we are here. And this parsha shows us and teaches us so clearly that the Jewish people are not a religion. They are a people. They are bound by a covenant and bound by an oath, the oath of the Almighty. And a people has a land, and a people has a way. And God tells us, and Moshe reminds us in this week's parsha, that we are to go not to the right and not to the left, but to keep that way completely in this land. So what are we doing in this land? And what is our right to it? These are questions that are being considered by the greatest minds, as it were, as we speak. And this is an obsession that the world is dealing with right now, trying to put their minds around this question. Who are the people of Israel? What are they doing in this land? And what is our right to it? And both questions are answered so exquisitely in this week's Torah portion. Yes, we have to rout out all of the terrorists in the Hamas tunnels. Yes, we have to demilitarize Gaza. In fact, we have to retake Gaza. We have to live in Gaza since it's the land of Israel. But all of that is not enough. The connection between the people of Israel and this land is based on the Torah. How much clearer could it be? We stood at Sinai. We are witnesses for all time to God's oneness. We received the Torah. We have a mission and a destiny in this world. It's to bring the commandments into the land of Israel and to make it shine for the whole world, to be this example. And this week's Torah portion explains to us the very phenomena that we see all around us. This is the reason for our being, and this is the reason that our being is brought into question because we have one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to cross over the Jordan River, to come into this land armed with the Torah, to keep the commandments. This is the oath that we accepted upon ourselves. This is the land that God swore to our forefathers. And when we are plugged in, as it were, when we are here in this land, committed to keeping the commandments so that we can possess it, so that the Torah can go forth from this land, that brings about such a state of excellence for all humanity, that all of Moshe's prayer for his people comes true. And truly, the children of Israel united with the God of Israel, keeping the commandments in this land, brings about this perfection for humanity, and will be we will be able to prove that this will be the beginning of the greatest era for humanity.